One.
Wow. Wow, James, you've ruined it. Congratulations. You went and ruined it. You're not supposed to say the one. It's always silent, James. Come on. Oh, man. Hello, and welcome to episode 9 of the Waterdhavian Job. I am your DM, Brad, joined today by 3 of my players. I have James, Zach, and Morton here. Thor went to take a nap and forgot about daylight savings time, so we'll probably see him in an hour. But for right now, he's not here, and Mike could not be here this week, and so unfortunately, he was supposed to be doing the recap, and nobody here remembers anything that happened, except me, of course, because I am the DM and it's my job. I guess I am doing the recap this week. Go figure. I get the point of inspiration. Uh,
Oh,
so, Before we begin here, last time on the Waterdhavian Job, our group of explorers and homeless-ish people um, had basically continued to. I believe we opened. You were still in the Blue Alley, and you had done a little bit of exploring like a few more rooms in, when you fell for the dastardly trap that had been laid out by its creator. You had defeated these strange like gremlin creatures that came after you. Went down the hallway, explored like the first room there, where there was this iron gateway built into the far end wall, and clutching the gem, Reginald was the first to reach up and touch these bars, and he just vanished. After which everybody else basically just shrugged their shoulders and did the same thing, and all found themselves in a pile, basically having been teleported into the middle of the yawning portal trap room, where Durnan gave them some drinks, said he didn't want to know what the hell happened or how they got here. And so they finished their drinks and agreed with a resounding sigh that perhaps they should go back again tomorrow, and left and went back to the Troll Skull Manor. Upon arriving there, they decided that rather than just wasting the entire rest of the day sitting around doing nothing, they could at least try to get something done later on in the evening. And so later that day, I believe it was Dricken, Bassick, and Sheldrake went out to the dock ward to investigate a string of recent murders that have been committed there. An associate of Sheldrake had asked him to look into this. For some reason or another, and so he brought the two of them along to investigate while leaving Reginald and Valerie back at the homestead there. There was a lot of they found their way. Basically, they just went to the docks and found a sort of like sailor's tavern there. Were asking around for information. The patrons didn't really have a whole lot to go on. Obviously, not many of them really pay attention to the coming and going of every ship that comes into harbor, but suggested perhaps that speaking to the harbor master would be a good option. However, the office would be closed, so they'd have to come back the next day to find that information. After that, the three of them went out to investigate some of the different crime scenes that he'd been told about. Obviously, it had been a long time since the crimes happened, so there was not much to be found there. They did end up interrogating a homeless man for some information, but didn't really glean all that much from him. He seemed a little bit addled, not quite fully there, talking to him. Other than that, they didn't really get a whole lot. There was some connections they made with the different crime scenes, as it were. A lot of similar structure in the alleyways, but they didn't learn any new information about who the assailant was, or any similarities between the targets beyond their elven lineage. Meanwhile, back at the tavern, Reginald and Valerie were keeping an eye on things when they heard a strange giggling, like a young girl's like giggling sound, echoing out through the tap room. Valerie, suspecting that it was one of the three orphans, Nat, went around the bar to go look and see what the cause of this was, and saw that the latch to the basement and ale storage cellar had been lifted open, and the giggling was emanating from there, as well as some rather strange sort of nursery rhyme sounding kind of phrases. Immediately, sort of a little bit scared at this point in time, having kind of realized that it probably couldn't have been Nat at that point in time, because she's mute, she can't speak, so that definitely gave away that this was something else, perhaps another friend of theirs or something of the likes. But nevertheless, she enlisted the help of Reginald to go down the stairs first, because she was too scared to do so. And the two of them went into the basement, heard more of these sort of strange noises coming from around the corner, and when they went to investigate, one of the beams of the ceiling collapsed, nearly catching Sir Reginald, but he managed to jump out of the way, pushing Valerie out of the way as well, before the sort of ceiling beam and some of the stones there collapsed on top of them. And in the process of doing this, collapsed open a sort of small, like cubby in the wall almost, that seemed to have been like hidden behind like old brickwork. And inside they saw a pile of ashes, and amidst those ashes, what looked like small humanoid bones, like the bones of a child. And again, they heard some more kind of like creepy laughter, and in fact, this sort of old woman's cackling as they like gathered up the bones in a sack to discuss what to do with them, and basically just left. They left that basement real quick. And there was a meetup that happened where everybody got back together, kind of discussed between the two groups what they had learned, and basically the last thing that happened was right as everybody was going up to go to bed, Valerie once more was sort of amidst this storm, kind of spooked by this apparition that appeared behind her, but then quickly disappeared. And so we pick things back up while you guys have all returned to your rooms, kind of your bedrolls laid out on the floor again, kind of, buckets and pails set out to catch dripping rainwater from the roof. Squalid conditions, to be sure. And that night, Valerie,
Yes.
as you are sleeping, at first, it's rather kind of peaceful. You're having like a normal dream, but before you realize what is happening, this nightmare squeezes in around you. You feel yourself falling through these dark depths. The taste of salt and blood on your lips, and water like rushing into your lungs as you're breathing. They're dark, but not empty, and you hear this sort of wailing noise, like this haunting chorus that surrounds you, and you realize like you're being washed up in what seems to be this sort of like dark sea almost, but it's churning and spinning around and around, like a whirlpool pulling you down under. And as they drag you deeper and deeper, you eventually kind of like bump into something in this dark sea, and as you go to turn and look and see what it is, suddenly you snap awake, bursting free from this nightmare. The sheen of like cold sweat over your face. It's the middle of a cold night. You're alone in your room, and as you're sort of sitting there breathing heavily, trying to calm yourself down, you eventually your heart rate calms down a bit, and you try to go back to sleep, but there's still this kind of taste of like blood in your mouth and this sort of like salt on your lips as you try to sleep, and you find that you cannot bring yourself to return back to sleep, and you spend that night sort of restlessly trying to drift off to sleep. At this point in time, you're the only one awake, it would seem. Is there anything in particular you would like to do, or do you just basically lay there trying to sleep the rest of the night?
Well, I mean, so is it just when she's woken up, or has she been trying to get back to sleep for a while now?
I will say it's maybe been like a few minutes. Like it hasn't been a super long time, but
Well, yeah, I think she'd keep trying to go back to sleep for like another hour or something, and if it still doesn't happen, I imagine she might just give up, and then maybe just go to like do some tinkering or reading until everyone else gets up, and just have a very unpleasant, I imagine, day ahead of her.
um, yeah. So you're there trying to drift off to sleep, and as you do, um, about like half an hour or so later, again, there's still this sort of like dull taste of this irony taste of blood in your mouth. And suddenly you feel your tongue scrape against something in your mouth, this sort of like chunk of like something salty and wet. And like, so, like suddenly, like, you kind of get this like lurching like sickness in your mouth as you like reach into your mouth to like grab whatever it is, and you pull out this small wet chunk of what looks like flesh.
What?
Can you make a Constitution saving throw?
Well, this is bullshit. Why am I the only one who's got spooky dreams? Constitution saving throw. 20.
Okay. So as you're holding this and you come to like the realization this is some sort of like, this isn't just like meat. This is like human flesh almost, or something of the likes. You feel your stomach beginning to like turn up, but you manage to hold it down, and as you look you see that it seems to in your hand kind of dissolve away into nothing as if it was never there, but you still feel the taste in your mouth. um, and so you spend the rest of the night sort of restless, unable to return to sleep. Everybody except Valerie benefits from a long rest that night.
What is this bullshit?
However, Valerie, you are unable to sleep and therefore cannot gain a long rest.
I'm so salty.
We can hear that.
Oh my god.
We can
so
hear your saltiness.
as you were all meeting up again that morning in sort of the common room on the second floor of the manor, you see like Valerie just like heavy kind of like bags under her eyes, like drooping, obviously having obvious signs of having not slept at all that night, as you all are meeting up for the day's activities. As you're standing there, you see Sheldrake looks to you, Valerie, and says, "What seems to be the matter, my lady? Didn't sleep well last night?"
I had a terrible dream and something else. In the middle of the night, I woke up from my dream and then she'll like sort of part her mouth and say, at some point, I tasted something in my mouth. I took it out and it appeared to be a small piece of flesh of some description, but it appeared to it disappeared rather quickly afterwards. I don't know. I don't suppose your knowledge of religion might be able to give me any indication of what it is.
And he sort of like thinks and says, I think the lady is hallucinating. A bad nightmare. Or perhaps the
Ugh,
ghosts have taken a liking to you.
let's not hope it's not that.
Nevertheless, you are unharmed, although you look as though you've had a rough night.
Exhausted for sure, but unharmed.
I trust this will not interfere with the meetings you are scheduled to attend.
Well, it's just a water meeting. And said, well, it shouldn't do, no. Speaking of which, we should probably get ready for that.
Um, yeah, so he sort of nods and turns to Dricken before looking to you and says, "There is something that I need to check on. I would like to take Dricken with me, if that is not too much of a problem."
Okay.
He says, "I will be back later today."
Very well.
Yeah, so he and Dricken kind of leave off together, leaving the three of you. Um, yeah, and so um, today you would know that you have your meeting around noon with the Loyal Order of Skilled Laborers in order to finalize your contract with them to begin removing a lot of the refuse and broken furniture that you would piled up outside of the house as part of your cleanup efforts. So at that point, you can begin kind of reconstruction proper. You also know that obviously there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the house itself. You'll have to set up meetings with some of the other guilds about that. For the time being, you're more focused on this. As you're kind of getting ready in the morning, obviously you don't have to leave right away. You've got some time. As you're getting ready in the morning, you begin to hear sounds emanating from outside, like loud noises. Early in the morning, the sound of hammers, basically like hammering into wood, like the sound of a saw dragging back and forth over a log. And looking out the window, you can see across the street, the building opposite of you, there are a number of what appear to be laborers working, sawing wood, kind of smashing down, basically like demolishing pieces of the interior of the building opposite, and it appears reconstruction has begun on that building. And you see they have like filled the street in front of your two residences, filled the street with all manner of like tools and carts full of supplies and the likes, almost like completely blocking off access.
What the hell? I like turned to Basic to Reginald. Like, are you seeing this?
I'm probably in the kitchen making some breakfast. I'm just
Okay,
like,
fine.
huh? Peeking out like what?
Look at all this. I point to like the hubble above in the street.
Kind of woke up and like, oh, damn.
I know. I'll sort of like make my way. Is there like a worker nearby?
So you see basically that there is what appears to be like a almost like a foreman overseeing things. Like he's got basically like his old school D&D equivalent of a clipboard. They're all wearing like protective helmets and the likes. And he's standing next to a like a shorter man in kind of like, again, like these sort of like out of fashion clothes. And you recognize him. I believe you were there when he arrived the first time. He's got these sort of like thick sort of mutton chop kind of beard. And he is the man that was meeting with the agent who purchased this place originally. No doubt the Mr. Froon that you've heard of. And they're the closest to you. The other workers are all kind of in the building opposite or like in the street, kind of, working basically to build like new replacement beams and the like. So they appear to be working on the like carpentry of the house at the moment.
Okay, so Mr. Fruit and this worker are talking at the moment.
Yeah, he seems to be like conversing, like stood side by side, like gesturing basically to the house, perhaps relaying instructions or something of the likes.
Okay. Is there like just a normal work?
There is, but you would have to walk past these two to get to the actual like work site. Like they're on the outskirts of it. All the workers are
Oh,
in the
okay.
work site working, so you'd have to walk
Uh,
past them to get to one of the regular workers.
uh, my perception is not great. Who could eavesdrop? Because they are talking at the moment.
I kind of like.
I only have like a
mean,
13.
I mean, I know how to
Kind of.
sneak up on people.
I suppose you could be able to make out what they're saying. Bit loud for me.
I sure could. Is there like any stands or anything close by that I could walk up to, like to stealthily, like look at something, window shopping or something?
If you took like a long way around, like if you went out like the back door of the tap room and kind of like worked your way around, there's some like carts of like raw goods and stuff like that that you could probably like pop behind that may be close enough to like overhear the conversation. It really depends on how loud they're talking to each other. But there's definitely places to hide yourself at the outskirts of the work site. Getting in, however, like you'll get noticed if you actually like walk past the outskirts.
No, I didn't. Like I'm just gonna be out in the roads ish and just stay hidden and eavesdrop, basically.
All right, go ahead and make a stealth check then as you kind of work your way around to try to get advantage. Okay. Yeah, so you make your way out and around, trying to stay out of sight of these workers and kind of like make your way to where there is like a cart of like lumber basically that has been parked, kind of blocking the street somewhat, a little bit close to where these two are conversing. Those of you that are back in the estate can see him clearly, but from their point of view, they wouldn't be able to see him. You're pretty well hidden there. And yeah, as you get like a little bit closer, like inching your way basically to the very outskirts of where they're talking, can you make a perception check for me to see if you can hear? Because they're not talking very loudly, and there's a lot of loud noise going on, so it'll be hard to like focus in on what they're saying. 18. That's pretty good. There is a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of banging and loud noise that is distracting and hard to get through. But you can sort of narrow in a little bit on their conversation. You hear that the foreman looking one mentions to the man, and he presumably Mr. Froon, and he just sort of says something along the lines of the guilds aren't going to be happy with this. To which to the man says something along the lines of "fuck the guilds," basically. And then you kind of like you see like the foreman is like obviously like somewhat like nervous looking, like he looks nervous. But he says, Mr. Froon says, "My backers are stronger than the guilds," and that's kind of like all you overhear.
Okay. Then I'll make my way back to like if I'm like just stay a little bit, just see if there's anything else. If there's nothing else, I'll just make my way back to the.
Yeah. At that point, they kind of like walk off into the job site together.
I walk back in and go like, so I got some info there, but can't really say it was a lot.
What did you hear?
Basically, they're talking about, and I kind of give him a rundown of it and go like, that they really don't care what the guild thinks.
Well, some attitude like that will come back to bite them, that's for sure. He had a backer
Well,
stronger than the guilds.
Seem pretty certain that stronger than the guilds, and a place like this, I feel like the only thing stronger than the guild is the underground, basically.
Brad, like,
Mhm.
would I know like what higher authorities could surpass the guilds? Like,
Um, to the best of your knowledge, no such authority exists. Like, the guilds are kind of like they don't run the place, but they sort of run the place. You know?
yeah, they don't run the place, but they sort of run the place. But yeah, I suppose like Valley would shrug and say, "Well, I guess that would make sense. I mean, I'm not very clued in on the more nefarious aspects of the city, as you know, so maybe we should best steer clear of him for now. I'd rather not get tangled up in any mess that we can avoid."
Well, I look at her and go like, and you, with a curious sort you are gonna avoid confronting with someone that does some shady business across the street.
Well, I'd like to know what's happening, but I don't want to. I don't
I
want
will.
to rattle the hornet's nest.
I will say that as you're kind of looking things over, um, Basic, you notice like the way that the carts and like supplies have been arranged and all the tools and stations and the likes. It almost look as though they've been intentionally arranged to block off access on the north and south of this street. And it looks as though like if the carters come in to like remove the trash that is piled in front of your house, they're going to have a hell of a hard time actually getting there because of all the stuff that's been put in the way.
And you go like, and it seems like the guys across the street intentionally has blocked off our street, basically. So when the people are gonna come to pick up some trash, there's gonna be some trouble.
Blocking the streets. Brad, does Waterdeep have laws of right of way?
Not really.
This is bullshit. Like, can we get out?
Yeah, so there are other roads that like lead into Troll Skull Alley. They're just like roundabout, right? Like it's not like the road that your manor is on is like the main one that leads in here. It's like the biggest one. There are some like side roads that like cut out at other points in the alley. You just have to kind of like go around and like go the long way.
Right. Fair enough then. Like, are there any like provisions that like I don't know the guilds like this is the Order of Street Cleaners? Are there any provisions that they are like allowed by law to like access these streets, or are they like, or do they just also have to take the long way around?
I mean, it's not so much a matter of like whether they're like allowed to access the streets or not. Like the streets are blocked by another group of people doing work. Like
Right.
there's
Okay. Well, I
There.
suppose I'll make.
you don't have any power to go out there and tell these people move all your shit out of the way, right? Like
Yeah, but I was wondering if the guilds did.
probably not. You'd probably have to get the watch involved if you think it's something that you have
Okay, that's fine.
ground to stand on, right?
Well, I'll probably just mention it to the guild then when I go for the meeting. All right. Well, anyway, yes. So I suppose like after that, it's like okay, well, let's head to the meeting now.
Lead the way, milady.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you make your way out of the building and kind of like down the street. It's like totally blocked, so there's enough room to like walk past here. So as you're walking out, you see the man and this like foreman walking out of the other building. Obviously, having finished their like look over or whatever, they're still like conversing. But you see like as you're like leaving, he like looks over and kind of like waves with like a smirk on his face before like going back to converse with the foreman some more as you are making your way out. And so you begin making your way across the city on foot here, taking basically like this first part of the morning. Obviously, it's early in the morning. Everybody's like going to their places of work, going about their business. Pretty busy, like high traffic. So it takes you some time. You basically arrive just before your meeting is scheduled. With the guild representative here, and as you enter, you speak with the secretary, who basically tells you to wait in reception before you are eventually called up to your meeting. And yeah, so you enter. You are escorted into the office of the dwarven guildmaster, and you can see he has a number of like papers that have been like laid out on the desk in front of him, and he just says, "Lady von Bourbon," and he says, "The paperwork has been completed," and he says, "All that remains is for you to sign on the line here and submit the payment for work, and we can begin in a matter of hours."
Wonderful. There's
We paid up front though.
Oh, you haven't paid yet.
well,
You said you would
no.
you would take the payment when the contract is sort of signed.
Yeah. So like, I suppose I'll like hold my hand out over to like to Reginald because I gave him the money to hang on to.
Oh, about no, I'm playing. How much was it? It was just 90 gold, right? Or 60 gold, or what was it?
60, yeah, I believe was the agreed upon.
I give the 60 gold sack over.
All right. So I'll take the coins and I'll say it's like, okay, wonderful. And I'll like put them on the table. And I suppose I'll say it's like, if they're going to be starting within the next hours, I should inform you that there appears to be some work going on in the street, and I'll sort of like tell them like the current situation, what way they should probably go to like get there.
Yeah, so he sort of like thinks for a moment, like scratching his beard, and he says, "It's an awful roundabout route. It will take extra time that we had not anticipated when we were originally making this deal. Is there nothing that can be done?"
I nudge Valerie and kind of like whisper into her, like, as I said, I don't think the guilds know. Maybe you should, use that into the conversation.
Right. And she'll say it's like, well, it appears the work is taking place on the orders of a Mr. Froon. I don't wish to... And she'll say it's like, I don't know if this might weigh in, but I don't think he has guild approval to do the work that he's doing.
So he thinks for a moment. He says, "What manner of work did you say it was? Carpentry?"
And yeah, she'll sort of describe the scene that she saw. And it says, it looked like it's a general refurbishment of the building across the road.
And he,
I was quite blindsided by it myself, to be honest.
And he just sort of says, curious, and he says, rather brazen, if true. Alas, there is nothing that we can do about it. If it is true, you'll have to go to the Guild of Carpenters and submit a complaint on their behalf to have it investigated. I have no power to stop them.
I might just do that. Well, in regards to the work then, I'm not sure how long this extra detour will take. Would it be possible to pay for the extra coin at its conclusion once we know how long they'll be doing it for?
And he sort of like, again, kind of like looks basically kind of down, and he says, it will not add too much to the labor costs. Over the duration, probably another 5 gold will cover it.
Needs must, I suppose. And I'll like slide over I'll put another 5 coins in the sack.
Yeah, and he sort of like begins kind of like counting it out as he gestures to the papers, and he just sort of says, I have highlighted the areas where I need you to sign your name here, here, initials here, and there's basically like this stack of like papers, like this legal contract that has been like laid out that you have to like flip through and sign as he's like counting up the coins to make sure there's enough there.
Can I do an investigation check to make sure they ain't joshing me here, Brad?
You can make an intelligence check, yeah.
Intelligence check. All right. 15.
It all seems like relatively like above board. Like obviously you don't have enough time to just like sit here and like read the whole thing. But like scanning over, it seems to be very basic, kind of bog standard, like contract language. Essentially, there's no like hidden traps or anything in here that like will screw you over later down the date. Right? It's just making sure that everything is above board and like accounted for.
Okay, fair enough then. But I'll sign them.
All right. Yeah, so you go through the process, like signing them quickly as he counts up the coin, kind of like nods, splitting it. You see he opens like a vault and kind of like places it in there before sealing it again. He says, "It's a
Valerie's
pleasure."
signatures, of course, very calligraphized, very fancy, lots of
Of course.
swirls, dashes, and twirls.
Yeah, so he says, "Been a pleasure doing business with you." And he says, "I will get my men gathered up and we'll see to beginning this removal of the trash from your premises as soon as we are able."
Thank you very much, and good day.
And he nods and says, "If you would like, I could direct you to the main offices of the Carpenter, Roofer, and Plasterers Guild. Perhaps if you would like to speak with their representative about this unauthorized guild work."
That would be very appreciated.
And he sort of like nods and says, "It is definitely serious business undermining the guilds in this city." And he kind of says, and he kind of like basically gives you directions. Right here, go down this road, make a left here. You'll see this building, so and so, giving you directions to the main headquarters of the Carpenters, Roofers, and Plasterers Guild.
Okay, perfect. Alright, well, after we're done there, I'll sort of like turn to the gang and say, okay, let's go make a formal complaint. Because frankly, all that work that they're doing is going to cause no shortage of bother, I can just tell. And I
Just nod.
I suppose we'll head there next, Brad.
Okay,
Yes.
so the three of you exit from the premises of the Street Laborers Guild and begin making your way through the streets towards the remainder of the way. Let me see here. Yeah.
I wonder if we'll have to go talk to one of our neighbors at some point, guys. Dead bones in the fucking fireplace and shit. I feel like we might need to ask the neighbors if they know what's up.
Okay, yeah. So you make your way through the streets. Nothing really untoward seems to happen as you make your way the rest of the way to the headquarters of the Carpenters Guild, basically. And there is a similar sort of perception set up there. And the secretary sort of greets you as you enter in, and he says, "Welcome to the Carpenters, Roofers, and Plasterers Guild. Is there anything that I could assist you with, or do you have an appointment?"
I've come to make a formal complaint about non-guild affiliated work in regards to and I sort of gesture around to what you would normally be doing, taking place near my residence.
And just sort of says, "I see." And he says, "That is most dreadful business. Do you mind me asking your name, good lady?"
Of course, Valerie Cadencia von Bourbon.
And he says, "Right. Wait here a moment. I must go speak with the guildmaster." And
I sit down in the comfiest looking chair.
Yeah, they're all pretty standard. There's some broadsheets basically spread out on the tables to read through. Yeah, so he leaves, kind of entering into the back, and returns a few moments later with a rather tall. A rather tall-looking, lithe elven man, who you see his it's obvious he's been working, right? Because there's sawdust and wood chips kind of all caught in his clothes, and in his long kind of brown hair, and he kind of looks around and says, "Valerie von Bourbon." And he says,
Yep, I'll sort of scamper over. Sorry, that was faster than I expected.
So he says, "Yes, well, my secretary told me that there is a rather disturbing report that you have to submit."
I do, and I'll say it's over in Troll Skull Alley, across from Troll Skull Estate, there appears to be some plastering and roofing work being done, and from the sounds of it, doesn't appear that it looks to be guild affiliated. Of course, if I'm mistaken, I do humbly apologize, but But that is the impression that I got from hearing them discuss it.
Yeah, so he sort of thinks for a moment and says, well, we'll have to consult with our ledgers to be sure. I thank you for this information. We can assure you that it will be investigated with all of the scrutiny we can bring to bear. He says, we cannot allow our business to be undermined. I says, of course, it will take some time, I'm afraid. For the meantime, there's not much we can do about it, unless you have some conclusive proof or evidence to submit to suggest that.
I sort of like, shoot Basic a glance and not at the current point. But if anything does come up, I shall be sure to let you know.
He sort of nods and says, of course, in the meantime, we will begin our own investigation. We'll have to get approval from the City Watch to look into these matters, but if it turns out that these are indeed true, these rumors of yours, then you will have our gratitude.
And I'll just nod and say, all right, thank you, Ben. And good day.
Yeah, so he sort of like nods, whispering something to the secretary as you make your exit.
Okay, formal complaint established. All right. We can't really go to Blue Alley, can we? Because we don't have 4, and we don't have Mike.
Nope.
All right, boys.
No.
What's our get rich quick scheme with 3 people, one of which hasn't had a long rest?
Murder one of the richest people in town and take everything now.
Do we want to go do a watch job and just start watching for the City Watch guy?
That's a lot of time commitment, though, is the issue. I wonder, Brad. Do the guilds offer like rewards or anything like that for like reporting these incidents? Like if we have like conclusive proof, it's like, yes, they are definitely doing it. You can go now. Would they offer a reward?
It depends on like the severity of it. Obviously, maybe it might not be like a. It depends. Obviously, it might not be like a strict like monetary reward, but you could earn their favor, which you could spin to like use in your favor basically later on the line.
Basically, like a 20% discount on your next purchase.
I mean, maybe.
Okay, fair enough. Well, okay, as we sort of like get out, I suppose I'll like turn to Basic, and it's like, so Basic, the man said if we have any proof, any like concrete proof that they are working without the approval of the guilds, then they would be able to act faster. And maybe the guilds would reward us with any favor if we were to do such a thing. And I'll sort of say it's like, I don't suppose you'd be able to maybe acquire such proof. I don't imagine that they have any paperwork, or if what they do have would definitely be incriminating.
I look at him and go like, so what you want me to do is to sneak into a place full of people, steal some incriminating evidence, where there's a bunch of people, and get out with it.
Well, we don't have to do it in broad daylight.
Can you make an insight check, Basic?
Well, Basic.
Insight.
Can I give him the help action?
No.
Oh, never mind.
Wouldn't help.
An 8 and a 7.
Okay. Continue.
What?
Yes. Yeah, okay, so like I'd say it's like, well, it doesn't have to be in broad daylight. We could always wait until nightfall. But is this something you think that you could maybe do?
To be honest, I actually don't know right now. I'll have to double check that when it's nighttime to see how much people there is.
Perfectly understandable. I'll sort of like look to Sir Reginald and say it's like, well, this Mr. Prune character is starting to become a little bit of a pain. I don't suppose you know anyone who might know anything about him. Or have we already barked up every tree in that regard?
Brad, do I know?
Um,
I'm assuming I've never personally heard of this guy
no,
before.
I mean you've never personally heard of him.
Do I know anybody who is knowledgeable of people?
Maybe. What's your? Do you have the? What's your background?
Smuggler.
Smuggler, well, criminal, basically. Um, you might have some like contact if he's truly like associated with the underworld as Bassick seems to suspect. Some of your contacts may have heard about him, but it's going to take time to get back anything from them. Um,
So yeah, I'll tell Valerie that. Like, maybe might be able to learn something, but it'll take time for me to figure anything out. Anything out.
You have to go speak to all your old acquaintances and such.
Yes.
Hmm. Would you be able to start now? I was thinking maybe me and Bassett could go speak to the neighbors around the manor, and maybe see whether they know anything about its troubled history. The discovery last night, and she sort of shudders a bit, left me a bit on edge.
Will you be fine without me?
I'll turn to Bassick and I'll say, it's like, well, I have Bassick. I'm just going to be speaking to the neighbors. I doubt anything crazy will happen.
Okay.
Famous last words.
So I guess I need to go talk to some of my old contacts.
Like, how much time would it take him, Brad? Like, roughly?
I mean, it's going to take like even just like getting in contact with them is going to it'll probably be like a matter of like because it's smugglers, right? They're not like out in the open. It'll probably be a matter of
Yeah.
like leaving a message at the right place. They'll get
Yep.
the message and then they'll get back to you. It's probably going to be days.
Okay.
So
You still
I
gotta...
need to go leave a message in the right place real fast. So I'll go do that.
Yeah, like you can
Okay.
go and like kind of like basically leave a message in the right place at the right time or whatever.
Yeah, to the right person who can get the right words to the right
To
person.
the right person, yeah, and they'll So
Yep.
yeah, you can go do that. It's not a big deal. We're not gonna
Yeah.
make you go like role play it or anything. Like you can just do that.
Okay.
So other than that, is there anything else you wanted to try to do, or are you just going to like go back for like a meeting, or what's the?
Well, yeah, like I said, I think Valerie was thinking maybe it's time to go visit the neighbors and see if they know anything more about Trollskull Manor's like troubled history. Who was that bookseller actually?
I believe his name is Rishal the Page Turner. Let me double check here. Yes, his name is Rishal the Dragonborn.
Okay, yeah, I think maybe we'll start off with him. A learned individual might know more. Yeah, so before Sir Reginald leaves, though, I will probably like turn to both of them and say, "Oh, real quick before we split paths, did both of you sleep well last night? No crazy dreams or anything like that?"
Like a
I,
rock, as
I,
always.
I slept like a cub.
Right. Okay then. Well, come on, Bassick. Meet you back at the manor, Sir Reginald.
I'll be there in a bit. Should only take me an hour or so.
Wonderful. Yes.
Uh,
All right, let's go speak to the bookman.
As we split up, I just look over at Valerie and go like, so I guess you didn't sleep well last night?
Not in the slightest. Like what I said to Sheldrake this morning. Terrible dream. It's not the
Okay,
first time either.
what was the dream about? Explain.
I dreamt I was being buffeted around by roaring waves and water, and then at some point a whirlpool opened up and threatened to swallow me whole. I think I can vaguely remember that there was something at the base of it. I think I reached out to grab it but wasn't able to, and then I awoke. Not screaming this time though, so that's an improvement. And then, like I say, I tasted something horrible in my mouth. Salty? Or whatever. I thought it was maybe my imagination at first, but when it didn't go away, I reached in to pull out something and it appeared to be a small chunk of flesh, but it disappeared. Like Sheldrake says, probably an illusion.
Or doesn't necessarily have to be an illusion, considering the ghosts you saw last night might have something to do with it.
Neither thought really comforts me, to be honest.
No, but that if it's the ghost, at least there is a way to stop it. That's to
True.
figure out how to deal with the ghosts. If it's not the ghosts, then it might be something else.
Well, like Sheldrake said, maybe the bones need a proper burial, but I don't know. I still don't know whether we should inform the guard of the situation. I know the bones are old, but surely this is still a crime.
Personally, I would go talk to the watch about it.
Perhaps you're right. Well, let's first go speak to the locals and see if they know anything about the history of the place. Maybe if we learn anything, we can take that to the guards, and maybe that will be of assistance.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So it sounds to me like Reginald is going to go off and leave his messages while the two of you go to Rishal and see if he knows anything about the history of the manor.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so you make your way. Again, it was about noon when you met with the guild representative. Probably took about like half an hour to an hour to get all the paperwork squared away. Getting back to your residence probably take another like hour and a bit. So it's now kind of like 2 in the afternoon, give or take, 2 or 3 in the afternoon. As you walk up through the sort of southern entrance of Trollska Alley, turning to the left, and making your way to the building sort of in the far corner here of the alley, with this sign with this gold dragon curled around this treasure hoard of book and scrolls, the bookworm's treasure. As you enter into the sort of library slash bookstore, there's like the ringing of a bell, and you see like you hear like a gasp as you see the dragonborn manager and owner, Rishal, who was obviously like sort of face deep in a book at the counter, kind of like startled by the sudden appearance of customers. He obviously doesn't get many during this time of the day, so he like closes the book up and kind of like looks over to you, adjusting his sort of like small spectacles that are like sitting on the tip of his snout, and he just sort of says, "Welcome to the bookworm's treasure." And he says, "I recognize you from before." And he says, "Is there something I can help you with?"
Possibly, yes. Can you go take us to the neighborhood map, just because I kind of want to remember where everyone is?
So he is over here.
Okay, perfect. Vincent Trench, the PI. Yeah, I was thinking about visiting him as well. But yeah, okay. So I'll say yes. Hopefully, Rishal. Well, as you know, I've recently acquired Troll Skull Manor, and we're in the process of trying to do it up. I was just curious, though, as this is now my new possession, I'm not entirely familiar with its storied history. I was wondering if you'd maybe be able to help us with that. I don't suppose you know anything about the local history or folklore or anything like that.
And you see his eyes like immediately light up, and he just sort of says, he says, "As a matter of fact, I do know quite a bit about this place and its storied history. If you'd like, we could go upstairs to the lounge and I could perhaps retell some of it to you." And you get the air, like, even without like making like a check or anything, like you get the air of like an old man who is about to tell you like an hours long story.
Yep, Valerie sort of like nods, like she's fine with this, but like she say, "Well, I would have no problem with that." And I sort of like turn to Basic and I say, "It's like, would you like to come along, or would you like to go for a walk around the neighborhood?"
I'll look at the librarian guy and go, like, do you have a kitchen? I can make some tea and some stuff for you while you're at it.
And he sort of says,
I'm a restless sort, and I usually belong in the kitchen.
sort of nods and says, "I have some supplies in the top floor here, cordoned away from the books so they do not get damaged." He says, "You can, of course, feel free to help yourself."
Yeah. Then I'm just gonna stay there, but I'm gonna cook some tea and see if I'll rest enough to make some biscuits or something. Just
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'll head
So
with Rishal.
he leads you up to the second story where there is again more like bookshelves and like books lining like every wall, but there's sort of like an open like kind of like lounge area with a couple of like comfortable seats and the likes. There's still that sort of like earthy scent of old books in the air, and he sort of gestures to one of the seats to sit you down, and you see he begins like rummaging through some of the shelves before pulling out this like large kind of like tome covered in dust. He sort of like dusts it off, kind of blowing off this dust into the air, and he just sort of says, "It's been a long time since anybody has asked of the history of this place, and it's as long-standing as it has been." And as he goes in and sits you down, he like begins kind of like flipping through this book and basically giving you this like lecture about the history of Trollskull Alley and the manor and all the buildings that had popped up around it, and gets sort of into like Waterdeep's history itself in like relation to that. And there's a lot of like information in there. Can you make? I want. Can you make? I guess it's like a concentration thing, right? So can you make like a Constitution saving throw to see if you can like pay attention to like the important stuff amidst the drone of everything?
Okay, I suppose I can do that.
Then you know there's a lot of information when you need to take a fucking con save to.
Hang on, I completely forgot. Like we passed dawn, so I have to roll d6 to get more charges for my armor. All right, I'm back up to max charges. So I suppose let's see.
Does it help that I come with cookies and tea? Does that give him advantage?
I don't know. If anything, that would be disadvantage.
They taste like shit.
Here we are. The infused item can send a jolt to the wearer to refocus their mind. The item has 4 charges. When the wearer fails a Constitution saving throw to maintain concentration on the spell, the wearer can use its reaction to expend one of the item's charges to succeed instead. Right. Oh wait, no, that's Mind Sharpener. So I've got Armor, Magical Strength. My bad. All right, so it's just a straight up Constitution saving throw.
Yes, please.
Okay. I will roll it and use my inspiration to roll it again. There we go, 22.
Okay. So you do. You're like pretty used to kind of having to like focus in through like long, boring kind of like lectures.
Considering who your sister is.
Yeah, so,
Yep.
you know, you've sat through a few of Alexei's kind of discourses on transmutation and the likes. Oh boy. So yeah, you managed to focus in on just getting like the information about the manor itself, mostly, and its history. It's had a number of owners. The original owner who like built it was a dwarf by the name of Ulcorio Stonemarrow, who owned the tavern for a while, operated it back before this area was really built up and was called like Trollskull Alley. But eventually she sold it to go adventuring. And according to Rishal, at least his most recent information, like she's still alive, some like living somewhere in the city of Waterdeep, although he doesn't know where. She sold it to a family of shield dwarves who eventually fell on hard times, and in turn sold it to a woman named Arissa Mirthkettle, who converted the building into an orphanage for a while. And things were all right. But after a few years, some of the children began to disappear mysteriously. And an investigation was launched by the Watch and some adventurers, and it was found that this woman was in fact a hag who was taking the children and basically cooking and eating them as hags do.
Okay, right. Well, I suppose yeah.
She was slain, and the building was abandoned for several years. But the horrible reputation basically haunted it, and nobody wanted to buy it until Leaf took over and converted it back into a tavern. He owned it for a long time before he died in that terrible accident, a few decades ago. And again, there was like a period of time where like nobody owned it, and then there was a bunch of more owners who tried to reopen it but got like booted out, or some people that were just like living in it, and then eventually it sort of fell into government ownership and was auctioned off, where Volo bought it and then gave it to you.
So I suppose technically, if you think about it, Volo was the owner after Leaf.
There
Okay.
were a lot of other people that like owned it, but again, they were
Okay.
like owned it for a time, and then like something happened. Like there was an economic recession at one point in time, and it
Yeah.
changed hands a lot. And there was some halflings that lived there for a time, but yeah, like nobody has stuck around for a while owning it since Leaf.
Yeah. So as he like sort of drones on from that, I'll sort of like try to like hone in on like the hag. What was her name again, Brad?
Her name was Arissa Mirthkettle.
Um, years. Orissa
It's here.
Morph
I'll
Kettle.
type it in the chat for you.
I kind of whisper in his ear because I'm there, so I go like,
Mm-hmm.
I whisper in the ear, go like, I think we found the problem. Now we need to find
Oh,
a
too.
solution.
I'll sort of say it's like, so this Orissa Murph Kettle, this hag who did this unspeakable deed, who was she slain by? Do you know?
And he sort of like thinks for a moment and says, well, such a thing would be the topic of police records, rather more so than written in history books. I believe, however, there was a team of adventurers that were brought in to deal with the situation, seeing as it was a little bit beyond the Watch's control at that point in time.
I see. By some adventurers. Okay, right. And did he mention how long ago Orissa Murph Kettle did what she did?
It's been at least a century.
This was over a century ago. Okay. All right. Quite a grisly chapter of its history.
And he
I'll
sort of
get.
like nods and says, I will not deny that tavern that you now possess has a rather sorrowful history. Many of its owners have met with untimely demises, and there is, of course, the reputations of haunting that precede it.
She nods, and I'll sort of like lean over to Bassic, and it's like, is there anything else you can think to ask? Seems like the situation with the hag was pretty cut and dry.
I look at him. Do you know anything about hags by any chance? Do you have any books on that?
Sort of like thinks for a moment and says, there might be something in my collection. And he says, give me a moment. And he kind of like gets up to like and like leaves the floor and like obviously goes to like look around for a
And
comment.
as he's looking, I'm like, I don't know anything about hags, but maybe there is something about the afterlife and hags. I don't know. Because there is something. If you saw the ghost, he said you saw an old lady. The old lady might be the hag. The children might be the ones that she burned and ate, basically.
Yes. Even if we were to put the ghosts of the children to rest, I don't think the hag would be so easily dislodged.
Exactly. That's why I asked him if he has anything about the hag to see if there's anything about hags and afterlife.
Mm-hmm. Nod.
Yeah, so he eventually returns a number of minutes later with like a stack of like books kind of precariously like balanced in his arms, and he says, I managed to find a number of tomes that detail hags to some extent, some greater treatises on the fey creatures themselves, some specifically on hags of various different varieties, and he kind of like places them on the table, and he says, there's a great deal of research on the subject, though I do not know if anything will help you. I'm curious, however. You seem. What is the cause of this interest in hags? Most people tend to stray away from such terrifying creatures.
I look at him and I look at Valeria like, might as well, you know. And I kind of like, they say the place is haunted, and we kind of had the same experience. And we're adventurers ourselves, so I just wanna basically see if we can figure something out about the hag, because it's somewhat haunted. And if there's something we could do about it, that would be wonderful, wouldn't it?
And he just sort of smiles and says, I can understand your hesitance in the matter, but I assure you the hag was slain, and there is no previous precedent of a hag coming back to haunt a place past their demise. Such is simply the domain of mortals. There has never been a recorded case of a ghostly hag. Such a thing is nonsense.
Yeah,
Well,
we're just covering every possibility at this point.
And he
which of
nods and says, well, if you would like, you could, of course, stay here and peruse these books at your leisure. Also, I could loan them out to you for a small charge, of course. I will expect to have them returned.
Yes, I mean that's up to the mistress here, but
yeah, going through all these books is not something Valerie thinks they have the time for. Um,
not right now. But
yeah, I'll turn to like Rashal and say it's like, do you know if any of these books at all mention the fate of a hag's soul or anything like that, or what happens to their soul?
And he sort of like thinks for a moment and says, I cannot say that they do. Such research into topics of the soul are the domain of necromancers and the likes. Most people shy away from those sorts of topics. Hags are vile and nefarious creatures. Most theorize that their souls are sent to the place that many evil creatures are sent to upon their demise, that being the layers of Avernus and the Nine Hells and the likes.
Hmm.
Night hags,
I'll
in particular, are fiendish in nature to begin with.
Do any of these books have any record of a hag maybe using some sort of enchantment to bind their soul to the material plane after dying? Or their soul hanging on at all?
And he just sort of shakes his head, and he says, "I do not think so. These are mostly treatises, studies of these creatures. Many of them, I must admit, are not exactly first-hand accounts of encounters and experiences. More research gathered from speaking to those who witnessed such things, second-hand accounts." At best, and as such, there is some nature of inconsistency, perhaps, but the general details are trustworthy, at any rate.
Well, I suppose then there's nothing for it. I shall just peruse them and see if any have the information I require. Well, it'll take me a while though. And I
Oh,
sort of
yeah.
like turn to Baskin and
Reading
say,
through
"Don't
all
feel
those
like you."
books, yeah.
Yeah, I sort of turn to Baskin and say, "You don't have to stick around if you don't wish to, though."
I will join you.
Help action, maybe?
Well, like
Yeah.
these are, like I said, these are like some of these books are like a little bit like some of them are almost like fairy tales, really, like more so like they mention like hags in that sort of like old German creepy like fairy tale kind of way.
Yeah.
Others
Lord of
are
Dreams
like
now.
others are more like really like dense like treatises and the likes. Either way, like reading through these books is going to be like it's going to take more than a day. Like you're going to have to like sit down and do it like bit by bit by bit.
Can I
Well,
basically give her? Can I give her a help action, like if she rolls? Considering I actually know all the normal languages: Common, Elvish, Goblin, Orc, Dwarvish. I can translate things.
I was
If
just
they're
sort of thinking I'd probably like, look through the books to see which ones would be the most useful to what I'm like looking for. Like, I'd probably disregard the fairy tales and stuff. Like after a
Yes,
quick skim of like looking through a few
disregard the
pages.
fairy tales. You will. Yeah. So I mean, you don't really have to make a check to realize like which ones are just like kids stories and which ones are like essays.
Yeah.
Pretty obvious. There's still quite a few of them. Like
Okay, right. Well, I suppose then, yeah, days of like flicking through them and having a look. All right. Well, I don't think I'll do it now. Hmm.
And
Let's see.
he
So
says,
Reginald starts to come.
he sort of says, if you'd like, I could put these books to the side for you if you wish to peruse them at your leisure when you have time. He says, I will,
That would be most
uh,
helpful.
and he sort of like nods and says, I will keep them easily accessible, that you might return to them when you have time to come visit. I do so enjoy speaking with visitors, and it has been some time since I've got to tell a story as we did today.
Well, maybe we'll get the chance to do this more often then. But yes, set aside those books. That would be most helpful. And I suppose I'll say it's like, one last thing before I go. I don't suppose you've noticed the racket going on in the street next to the alley.
And he sort of says, I can hear the hammers pounding from here. It makes it rather difficult to concentrate on my magics, but he says, such is the way of things when you live in a city such as this.
I don't suppose you've heard anything about the new proprietor of the building, Mr. Froon?
He sort of shakes his head and says, can't say that I have. He, unlike yourselves, has made no effort to visit upon the residents of the alley. That much I can assure you of. I have met nobody of such a name.
I see. Well, thank you for your time, and thank you for the tea. We best be going now. Have a good day.
And he sort of like nods and says, a good day to you.
All
So he
right.
like, picks up his book from where he left off.
So, like, as we leave, has it maybe been enough time that Sir Reginald would be able to meet back up with us yet?
Yeah, like if you go to meet back up, you will probably be arriving around the same time. So yeah, you like meet up basically like outside of the tap room,
Yeah.
with all the work going on or whatever.
Hello, Sir Reginald. Were you able to leave your message?
I was. Now it's just a matter of time until they reach out to me. But that
How
could
long?
take a couple days.
Hmm. I see. Well, I mean, Bassick have learned something as well.
Oh?
Apparently, the gesture to Trollskull Manor. The manor used to have been owned by, oh, get this, a hag.
Strangely,
Apparently,
that makes sense.
yep. Apparently, a woman by the name of Arissa Murphkettle opened the place to be an orphanage many years ago and was cooking and eating the children.
So what? It's haunted now by the ghost of the hag or the kids? I'm not sure.
I do think it's a little bit of both, to be honest.
I think it is both as well. Remember, after I left, you said you heard an old woman's cackling behind you.
I did.
I heard nothing of the like, but if what you say is true, then I think it's likely that the hag is still haunting the place. We had a
What
word
do we
with
do?
Rafal.
What do
I
we
do.
do?
Go what?
What do
What,
we
sorry?
do if we're being haunted by a hag? My
Honestly, I'm not sure. According to Rafal, the scholar just down the road, he said he's never heard of such a thing. Apparently, when these beasts tend to be slain, their souls just go straight down to hell. So the idea that one is haunting the place, with my rudimentary understanding of the arcane from life with my sister, she says through gritted teeth, makes me think that maybe there's some sort of spell or enchantment or incantation that is maybe meant that she has bound her soul to that building, or she shrugs. It could just be the case that she's haunting it like a normal spirit would, as unheard of as that would be.
I would stop it.
And I do have a feeling the orphans are kind of tied to her again.
Hmm. Maybe it's possible if we put the bones to rest and the spirits are freed, then maybe the hag will go with them.
We could attempt to. Do you
Could.
know how to put bones to rest?
Not a clue, which is why I'm hoping Sheldrake returns. We can get to that. God only knows where he's gone. Well, hopefully he won't be the whole day.
Brad, is it gonna be the whole day?
It depends.
Depends if Ford shows up.
Exactly.
Well, at this point, I don't think he is. He's already half an hour late from like what time he thought he should be here. So, Zach, are you playing Dragon Age Origins?
Yes.
My God, what a game!
My man.
I
Love
have it
that game.
minimized now that I'm back in the thing though.
Mhm.
All right, yeah. So you kind of like met up outside the tap room and were discussing things. As you make your way inside, you see like as you're entering, you see what looks to be like a kettle like drifting across the main floor towards as you get this like curious look like obviously you assume it's probably like a leaf but you're not exactly sure what he's up to, but as you follow the path you see as you arrive sitting sort of at a table in the corner that has been kind of like propped up there a figure is sort of there, reclining in the chair with what looks like a tea set in front of them, waiting in the main tap room of the tavern. And as you like look, you see that they are a probably like a middling height human woman with kind of like darker skin, kind of like short, almost like dreadlocked hair, wearing like rather like fancy looking but still practical kind of like robes. And they have this tall, like carved black wooden staff, like leaned up against the wall.
I'm sorry, did you say
nearby.
Black Staff?
Yes.
Oh my God! Alright, so do I recognize this? Like, I've spent time with Alexei.
Yeah, you would recognize the staff at any rate. You probably don't know the woman, but you would recognize the staff like immediately, and its
Yeah,
implications.
yeah, Vajra Sapahar. So, I imagine Mallory sort of looks at the Black Staff, looks at the woman, and has a moment of confusion before realization sort of dawns and says, "Oh, my lady, how an honor to have you in my establishment. Sorry, it's not in the best of days. I'm Valerie Cadencia von Bourbon, although you probably knew that. What could I do for you, esteemed Blackstaff?"
Yeah, and you see the kettle sort of like tips over, like pouring tea, and she kind of like nods, like smiling, and says, "You've quite the courteous, ghostly companion here." And she takes a sip, and says, "Do not worry yourself ever much about the state of this place. Rainier warned me as such when he spoke of you." And he says, "He told me that you were perhaps in need of employment. And
Oh. Yes, very much so. And I'll like, sort of like, I guess is there another chair so I can sit down across from her?
sure, yeah, you can like slide up like a
Yeah.
kind of put together chair there. Says, Rainier is a good friend of mine. He saved my life once, so I figured perhaps I could come and seek you out rather than assigning this to one of my pupils."
Ah, I see. Well, if you have a job that needs doing, we'd very much like to hear it. And says, "Oh, what do you need done?"
She sort of nods and says, "An apprentice of mine, some time ago, disappeared. I have not heard from her in some time. Says she was studying at a residence just outside the city walls that was donated to us by a apprentice of a previous Blackstaff long ago. A mage known as Festandia. A moderate residence, but a quiet place to study. And there is a modest library there, magical tomes as well. I am worried for her. We have not heard from her in some time, as I said, and unfortunately, I do not have the resources to investigate any further myself right now. I'm a little bit stretched thin with the greater problems facing the realm currently."
Oh. I wonder if his PC turned off.
Yeah.
Yes,
wonder.
go on.
And she
Huh?
says, and so I was wondering if perhaps I could hire you to look into this disappearance and see what perhaps might have happened to her.
Well, I see no reason why we couldn't look into something like this. I sort of look over at Basic. It's like, no, we don't, right? Basic, I imagine, gives me silent nod, and I'll like turn
No,
back
no.
and I say,
I go like, hey, pleased to meet you. I don't know who you are, but she's a mage, right? I kind of look at Valerie.
"Oh, of course. Where are my manners? Yes, Basic. This is Vadra Sapahar, the Blackstaff of Blackstaff Academy. You know the academy where Alexei studied."
Oh, you the wizard tower. Okay,
Yeah,
right.
the big one in the middle of town. And
Yeah.
I'll like,
But I mean, okay. This might be come over a little bit rude. I don't know. I kind of like whisper over to Valerie, like, can't you ask her about the hag problem?
good idea. I shall. After I get the details of the job, though.
Yeah, yes.
I'll Yeah, I'll sort of turn back to Vajra and I'll say, yes, well, like I say, we can definitely look into this. So we'll need some details then. So Vestendia, he was the previous owner of the building.
Um, she sort of nods and says, yes, she was the apprentice of a Blackstaff, three heirs prior to me, many years ago. Donated the manor when her own research was concluded, um, and has since been, well, missing, I suppose you could say. But an apprentice of mine, a young girl, reminds me a lot of your sister in many ways. Was studying
Oh
there
no.
when her reports suddenly stopped coming in. I'm rather worried that she has stepped into something more than she could handle, perhaps.
What is the currently missing apprentice's name?
Her name is Constance.
One day her reports stopped coming. I see. Has she done anything like this before?
Vadra sort of like shakes her head and says, no, this is the first time that she has not been in contact with me for this prolonged of a period of time. I have tried to send messages to her, and they have been unable to reach her, which is worrying.
I see. I'll sort of say it's like, so the manor house, does it have a name? Where can we locate it if we need to go and investigate?
She sort of nods and says, we simply call it Fistandia Manor. It is just outside the city walls. She gives you like directions, basically. It is not too far from the city, but far enough to avoid the riffraff, as it were. A nice, quiet place to study. She was a mage of some renown. I am told that at one point in time she had been researching ways to make extra dimensional spaces permanent, in a matter of speaking. Such things are usually a temporary conjuration. So you can understand that her research was quite interesting and important.
And so she was currently researching ways to make permanent extra-dimensional spaces. Was that what her reports were about?
So this she's talking about like the original mage.
Oh, right, the original, right. Sorry, my mistake. Okay, I'll say, I see. And what was Constance currently studying? Or researching, I should say.
I believe she was trying to tap into that research. It was never broadcast to the greater community of mages. She kept it to herself, and so she was trying to see if she could dig up how exactly she was capable of bestowing permanency upon such things, that we might be able to revive the art, and utilize it for our own means. I am
See,
worried that perhaps maybe she has accidentally stumbled into one of those extra dimensional spaces, which would explain why it is I'm not able to contact her.
Valerie would nod and say that would be a possibility. I am not super well versed in magic myself, so forgive me for the question, but these permanent extra dimensional spaces you're talking about, are we talking like pocket dimensions to hold things such as everyday books and tomes, or to hold things much larger?
And she says, varying degrees of sizes, although the one she was most famous for was her apparent creation of a permanent version of a spell known as Mordenkainen's Magnificent Mansion.
What? Oh my god. Um, and she'll nod. Mordenkainen's magnificent mansion. Right.
I said, of course, since her disappearance, nobody has been able to locate the entrance to this mansion, although it is rumored to still exist.
I see, I see. What was in her latest report? Like, would we be able to have a look at these?
Unfortunately, I cannot share the full reports with you, as it is confidential information of the Blackstaff Tower. I can, however, say that her latest report mentioned finding a tome amidst the books in the Festandia Manor. A tome known as The Joy of Extra Dimensional Spaces, I believe it was. She described it as a rather thick, leather bound tome with the visage of the rather famous Mordenkainen on its cover.
The joys of extra dimensional spaces. I see. Is this a tome that you've heard of before, or was this something that you've not seen previously?
She sort of shakes her head and says, I myself had never visited the manor and was unaware that such a tome was amidst its collection.
Understand. Sort of think for a second. It's like, did Constance have any other? Oh, wait, sorry. Is there anyone else at the Vestendia Manor, or was it just Constance at that moment? During this time?
At the time of her disappearance, she was the only one in residence there.
Okay. Yeah, Larry, she's like jotting this all down. Like, I'll sort of think for a second and say, do you know if she had any friends or visitors, or was she very much secluded away, only reporting to you?
She had a few friends, I believe, amongst the other pupils, but at the time she was alone, and I do not believe in contact with anybody else.
Understand. Sort of nod and say, well, if we need to talk to them, if it's necessary, we'll let you know. And I'll sort of like think and say, I don't think there's anything else here that needs asked. And I'll sort of turn to Bassic and Sir Reginald, even though like, I imagine he was a bit zoned out.
Yep.
What do you think, more? Any other questions that?
I go
Nope.
like under my breath, just hack.
Yep. And I'll say, well, thank you very much. And he says, well, we could definitely look into this. I think that's all I can think of to ask you at the moment. So how much will you be able to pay us for this job?
She says, yes, well, assuming you are able to find her and bring her back safely, or at least figure out what it is that happened to her, we can offer you 500 gold pieces, as well as a additional reward. I will have to see what we have available in our armory, but we could offer perhaps a magical item as compensation as well.
I nod and says, very generous, and says, well, I think that should be satisfactory. And I'll say it's like, we could definitely have a look at this for you, starting very soon.
Hack.
If possible, would it be? I would just like to ask a question of a more personal nature, if that's all right, given your magical expertise.
She sort of like chuckles and says, "Were you anybody else, I would have turned you into a newt at that question. However, given that you are friends of Rainier, perhaps I can answer a few simple questions."
Sort of chuckles nervously about Newt thing. And says it's like, well, recently we have come into possession of this manor, and as I sort of gesture to the floating kettle, you've noticed it is haunted. Though Leaf is a very kind soul, I think we have one that is not so quite. Have you ever heard of a hag remaining after death and haunting a place?
She sort of like narrows her brow and says, "I cannot say that I have, although research into such things was not necessarily my forte. I was more of a conjurer than a research into such things, the undead and hags and the likes. I could perhaps consult the library of the tower. Why do you ask?"
Well, we think we may be in that very situation. And says, I don't know if you know much about the history of this place, but once it was home to a hag who ran it as an orphanage, cooking and eating the children. And although the hag was slain over a century ago, we've recently had an experience that gives us pause and might give us an idea that perhaps the hag's spirit has not left, even though by all rights it should have gone straight to the abyss.
Sort of thinks for a moment. She says, strange. I was aware somewhat of the sordid history of this place, although I was not aware that it had once been owned by a hag. Unfortunately, I don't know much about the situation, although, like I said, perhaps I could have one of my pupils look into it, see if they could research anything in the libraries. I can't let you in myself, unless, of course, you have a way to contact your sister.
If only.
I kind of lean over to Valerie, go like, "You can show her the bones."
Oh, good idea. Yeah, I'll say it's like, well, maybe. And he says, well, another idea I had was that perhaps the hag has somehow used magic to bind itself here. And say it's like, would you be willing to have a look at something that we uncovered that might give us a clue as to what's happening? Shan't take a moment.
Sort of like thinks again for a moment and says, "I suppose, what is it? Some manner of arcane sigil or something of the
Just,
likes?"
I'm walking to get it and go like, as I get it, I'm like, just remember, we found this last night and we haven't really gotten anywhere with it yet. And I kind of like, I don't know really how to approach with these things. I kind of just I just wrap
dump them
open
on
the
the
bag a
table.
little bit and kind of like fold it down a little bit, like so she can see what's in it. And I go like, "There's a bunch of bones from children here."
Yeah, so she sort of like gasps, like covering her like mouth with her hand, like looking inside, and just sort of like you could see like this shocked like look on her face, and says, have you told anyone about this?"
We came home and everyone was exhausted. We went to bed and now we're here basically.
And
Honestly, I'm not quite sure what to do. It seems that since the guard dealt with this many years ago, that the case has been resolved and these bones need to be put to rest, but we just don't know what to do about the possible idea that the hag may still linger on.
he sort of says, well, nonetheless, having discovered bodies like this, the watch must be notified for an investigation to at least figure out who they belong to and The priests of Kellenvor, like, a proper burial is in order. Like,
We have already like proper burial and everything is planned. We are gonna do that. It's just we haven't gotten further than today, and we're gonna do it today. And maybe you could help us find out who. I don't know. That's why we asked, kinda, because these poor souls didn't deserve this.
and she sort of like nods and says like, I understand, but such a thing is the domain of priests. I says it is not my place to dabble in such things. I would suggest you report this find to the Watch immediately, as soon as possible, and convey the bones to the City of the Dead, where a priest of Kellenvor can see to them rightly.
A solid plan. Well, thank you very much. We'll look to investigate into the case of your missing apprentice as soon as possible. Is there anything else?
No, and on that note, I simply must be going. I have a meeting to attend to. Thank you in advance for your help in this matter. Should you resolve the situation, simply come find me at the Blacksmith Tower, knock on the door, and I will have you escorted to my office. And she sort of like grabs onto the staff, and you see as she like grabs it, she like hits it on the ground like one time and just vanishes.
I hate it when mages do that. I turn to Vassig and I say, I always feel it's very rude that they don't at least walk out the door first so you can see them out.
Yeah, I kind of.
I turn to Sir Reginald and I say, alright, Zach, so here's what you missed.
Yeah, there you go. Apparently, we need to go looking for a missing apprentice.
Yeah, Vadra Safahar showed up because Renier referred her to us. She has a missing apprentice, and she's probably stuck in a pocket dimension because that's what she was researching.
Cool.
Yep. But yes, let's deal with these bones first. She makes a good point. I was thinking we should maybe report this to the guards. So
Yeah, but as I said, like, we should report this to the guards, bring him to the priest, get this shit over with.
Yep, let's go do that then. So I suppose, like, Brad, how would we report this to would we head to like their office and file a report?
Yeah, you would probably just head to like the nearest like guard post, basically, and like basically like report like we found these at like such and such time in this place, and they'll put in like a report, an incident report about it, and probably schedule an They're probably gonna show up and just do like an investigation at your house at some point, just to like make sure nothing's like up, right?
Yeah.
And then that's really all there is to it. They're not really gonna like pry. Like, it's obvious that these bones are like old and you didn't kill them.
Yeah, so we'll do that. Would they take the bones, or do we need to take them to the priests of Kellendor?
That's something we have to ask them about, isn't it?
Yeah. So I guess we'll head to the nearest guard post to make that statement.
Sure. Yeah. So you head there and basically like explain the situation to like the guard that's on duty there, and he's immediately like, "Holy shit, this is above my pay grade," and gets his boss basically. So you end up speaking to like one of the captains, and they go through like filing this report. They ask a lot of like questions basically about like where they were found, like what time, like what the situation, and they kind of like brush off the like weird comments about like ghosts and stuff. And chalk it up to fatigue or something of the likes, and then at the end, yeah, they'll take like possession of the remains, and they'll see them to the priests of Kellenvor.
Okay. I go like, could we bring them to the priest, the bones? I kind of ask. My guy has no charisma whatsoever. He does not care. I like do it for you.
Yeah, the watch captain kind of like raises an eyebrow, and he just sort of says, "I suppose you could join us as we convey the bones, but at this point in time, we cannot allow you to take possession of them again."
that would be fine. That will be fine.
Mhm.
Says,
So I
I'm
guess we'll accompany the guard as they
curious
head
as
to the
to
priest.
why.
We need to
You're-
ask about the ghosts.
I basically say like, well, growing up as an orphan, finding a bunch of children's bones, it just hits a little bit too close to home. I just want to make sure they have a proper burial, and I don't really know how to explain.
And he just sort of says, I understand. Right. You wait a moment here. You can join us as we convey the remains to the priests of Kellenvor.
All right.
Okay,
All right.
yeah,
Here's where they draw their daggers. All hail the hag and kill
Oh,
us.
hail the hag. No, so yeah, they like gather up the remains, and basically like you join them as they like escort them to the city of the dead, where they
Happens.
arrange for like a meeting with a priest of Kelmavor, like explaining the situation basically, and like they go through the process of like giving them a sort of like burial. Like it's a city, so they're not like given their own individual graves. There's like an ossuary basically, where there's like collections of remains, but they're sort of given the burial rites, and kind of the bones are laid to rest amidst the ossuary.
Okay, but before we get that far, kind of like the priest, can I go like ask it if there is? We basically saying that we think the bones are cursed of some degree.
Um, trying to think here.
If there's any way, any way they can help us, commune with the dead, or
He just sort of says, at this point in time, the remains are too ancient for communication with the spirit. If there was some sort of connection, they has long since eroded. I'm not an expert at these sorts of things, but spirits do not often linger attached to the remains. Um,
but the thing is, we kind of last night saw ghosts that might have something to do with the bones. Well, basically, we think the bones are haunted.
And he just sort of says, well, if that is the case, then putting the remains to their rightful rest should dispel the situation, and if it does not, then you've got a whole bigger problem on your hands that is going to be a little bit harder to solve, and I'm not really sure there's anything that we can do for you in that case.
Fair enough.
You
I
don't
have
do
asked.
exorcisms?
And just sort of like looks at you and says, such things are the domain of folklore. Exorcism usually just means hiring a band of adventurers brave enough or foolish enough to confront ghosts. It is not really
Ah,
priestly work.
very well. Well, and he says, well, thank you anyway for answering our questions. And I'll sort of like, turn to Bassett as like we walk away and say, well, are you feeling brave and foolish enough?
I'm just like, oh god, this is never gonna end well.
What time is it, Brad, as like we're returning to the manor?
At this point, it's probably like getting like later in the afternoon, maybe like 6 o'clock in the afternoon.
How far out of Waterdeep, like, is the manor? Estandia Manor?
It's not like too far, maybe like an hour and a half outside of the city walls.
I kind of like hint her, like, isn't the people coming to pick up the trash coming very soon? Shouldn't we kind of help with, getting
Yeah,
things out.
Yeah, we'll head back to Trollskull Manor first. Hopefully the Order of Street Cleaners has arrived.
Yeah, so as you you arrive, you could see that it would appear as though like a number of like carts have been like brought in. It looks like the workers across the street are kind of like finishing up the work. But as you arrive, you see that sort of to the south of the manor, near where your like pile of trash is, there is what appear to be like two groups of people basically like shouting and arguing back and forth as the street is like basically like blocked up by all these carts.
Oh no. Let's go, Bassic. As like
Oh,
sort of like run over, I suppose.
Yeah, so as you like run over there, you see basically like yeah, there's these two groups of what look like workers basically like arguing back and forth, and like as you like get a bit closer, the one group like shouts basically shouts at the other. It's like well, move out of our way so we can get out of your way. It's like, and the other one's like, no, you move. We were here to do a job first. Obviously that we should be the ones given priority here, and they're just like, it's like a stupid argument basically, but it looks like it's been going for a while, like neither side wanting to like budge to the other.
Alright, so I'll sort of like rock up and I'll say, what's going on here? And I'll like gesture to a pile of crap. I'll say, I'm the owner of this building and this pile of refuse here. What seems to be the issue?
So yeah, one of the guys that's obviously with the street laborers, they've got like the empty carts and says, well, we were given a job to come pick up some refuse here at this place. We're told specifically to come through this entrance to pick it up. And as we were heading this way, these workers were loading their carts and blocking the streets, and now they refuse to move to grant us access. And then the other side says, we were exiting on our way when these fools came up the alleyway that was obviously not wide enough for both of us to pass and refused to give way, and now are just sitting here blocking our exit. We've got other jobs to get through. Can you please just move out of the way already? He says, and the other guy's like, no, you move. This is nonsense. You're lying out of your teeth. We were here before you started leaving. And they're just like, again, they like ignore you and go back to like arguing with each other.
Oh my god. Alright, Zach, we have to resolve this dumb dispute.
What's happening?
So, looks like the Order of Street Cleaners have rocked up with their carts to pick up our crap, but then these other workers were trying to leave at the same time they were getting in, and now neither will budge and are in an argument about who needs to move.
I mean,
Oh my...
how's this our problem? Let them discuss it themselves.
Because one of them is working for us.
Yeah, the
I
Order of
mean-
Street Cleaners.
They don't work for us. They work for the head of the Street Cleaners Guild.
Well, either way,
Yeah.
they've been hired to do a job.
By us.
I imagine they're just going to get it done regardless. No matter when they do it. We paid for our time. They get it done in that time, or I think we get our money back.
So, I sort of like look, Brad, like, so are there just laden carts and like these empty carts just at a standoff in the middle of the road?
Basically, yeah, like in the center of the alley, like basically like one group looks like they were heading south and the other group was coming up through the south to get around the block that was to the north, and now they're just kind of like facing it, and they've got the horses, right, and they're like facing each other, and like at this point in time, like turning either group of carts around is going to be like a process.
Right, okay. I mean, would it be easy for the carts that were trying to leave just to back up?
I mean, it wouldn't be like easy per se. Like they'd have to like unhitch the horses, like crank the carts around, like reset up, and it would be a process.
Oh my god.
I'm just gonna be right back 2 seconds.
I need you!
Yeah, I'm just gonna get something to drink quickly.
Okay. I sort of like turn to like Sir Reginald and say, okay, what do we do here? I want this crap out of like the front of the house. But like, what the hell do we do?
I mean, I don't. I don't have any good intimidation or anything, so I can't make people move.
I have persuasion at a +4.
Oh, I'm still loading into my sheet.
Wait till Morn gets back. I feel like intimidation would be a better one if we were gonna try and get like these bastards to reverse.
I might have intimidation, but I don't think it'll be that high.
I see Sarah's cough talking.
She does that. No, I don't even have intimidation. I have deception.
Interesting. Interesting.
I have sleight of hand.
Interesting actually. I wonder if you. No, no. There's no reason to like go that far. All right.
I mean,
Okay.
are we talking to them right now?
Well, they're arguing. Like I had a quick word with them to see what the situation was, and it's basically a he said she said situation of who was here first. Okay. So how like if these carts are on the way out, like I imagine if they were to reverse.
I imagine it's gonna be easier to move an empty cart than it is to move a fucking full cart.
That's kind of what I was thinking as well. Okay, I'll sort of like step up, I suppose. Hopefully, I've got enough persuasion for this and say, well, look, I see the situation as currently not going anywhere. Maybe if we were to reverse the empty carts and allow them to leave, then you could just move in and do your duty afterwards. And say it's easier to move empty carts than full ones, after all. Can I do a persuasion check, Brad?
Sure. Make a persuasion check.
I don't think this is gonna go well, Zach. It never goes well for me on persuasion. Nope, roll a 4.
Yeah, so he just sort of says, well, that might be the case, but this isn't a matter of which task is simpler or easier. This is a matter of who has the right of way here, and we were here first, so therefore they should be the ones moving out of our way, not the other way around. And then the other group basically like retorts, basically, no, you.
Oh God.
Can you make an insight check?
Yes. Fuck's sake, I rolled an 11.
At this point in time, you can like just like looking at the situation, you can tell that the side of the workers with the lading carts that were like leaving the other job are basically stretching this out on purpose.
They're stretching this out on purpose, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I don't have any indication as to why, or is it just that I like get the feeling that they're deliberately trying to hinder us?
More of like the second one.
Right. Okay. So I'll sort
Wait.
of like.
We're deliberately being hindered?
Yeah, apparently so.
By who? By the fucking...
By the non-guild workers. So I'll sort of like lean over to like Sir Reginald and say it's like, seems like these workers from across the road are trying to hinder the street laborers on purpose.
Okay.
Did you catch that, Morton?
Huh? Just came back. What?
Yeah, so basically it seems like the laborers who are not working for the guild, who are not on our side, are deliberately trying to like stretch this out and delay the street workers for as long as possible.
Okay.
So like I tried a persuasion roll, didn't manage it. Have you got intimidate or anything like that?
Can I look around the Brad and see if I see anyone that works with the city watch?
Looking around, like not anywhere, like in the immediate vicinity. You would have to like go to like the watch's office nearby, maybe like 15 minutes or so away.
Okay, because you know my wisdom is no, charisma is fucking a shit.
Damn. Alright. So I suppose then, since no one has intimidation,
But
I mean, just because we
give
don't
me-
have it doesn't mean we can't roll it.
yeah. Okay. Can I kind of give me like a rundown of the situation? Like, how are they? Like, why do we think they are deliberately stopping us?
I did an insight, basically.
Okay.
Like I said maybe the empty cart should just reverse because it's easier to move an empty cart than a full one. The street cleaners were like, no, this is a matter of them like purposely trying to block us. We have right of way. They're at fault here. And then Brad said, roll an insight, and I rolled an insight, and he says, it looks like these workers are finishing up for the day and are just trying to stall you.
Okay. So, how many are they?
Like a few dozen, like in total. The ones participating in the argument, there's only maybe like 3 or 4, but like there's a bunch of others behind them, just kind of like angrily, like kind of like staring crossed arms, just like get on with this already. What the hell's going on?
So, can I kind of like together with Reginald, kind of get the intimidation off and kind of like tell them to back off, or we'll get the authorities to
What's your charisma like? +1.
-1.
Alright, so I'll do the talking, and you
Yeah.
follow me up.
Yeah, basically.
Well, yeah. So
Uh,
to make like a dialogue based check like that, you have to have something, right? So what do you say?
Oh, I
What do you
have something.
how do you
I want to
intimidate
go up
them?
to these guys and tell them
And
we are under the impression that all your work here is currently going under the table, and the guilds do not quite know about it yet. So I think any trouble you will be causing now is just going to dig yourselves a deeper hole. Because once the guild finds out what any of y'all have been doing here, if y'all truly are working under the table, I'm sure you all know that that's a guarantee that none of you will be working here in Waterdeep anymore. So please, keep bringing the trouble, and we will go get the city guard. And then we'll see how long you have a job here.
Okay. Make an intimidation check.
Come on, Zach. Fuck!
Tell me, fucking. Alright, pull out the fucking mace.
don't you have inspiration?
That what? I don't know if I can. That just
He
gives
already
me
had
advantage.
Yeah, he already had advantage. You can't get advantage again.
Alright, I gave him my best. Let's just go.
Can't you reroll it with advantage? No, with
Nope.
inspiration.
No, it
'cause he
doesn't
already
work like
had-
that.
yeah, if he didn't have it, I would let him do the reroll, but because he already had it, then he's already rolling the 2. Because the reason I do the reroll is because a lot of people have the roll 2, and I don't want them
Uh-huh.
just being like, oh, I'm gonna spend my inspiration to get the better result. Just
No,
reroll it.
I get it. I get it. I just thought that was what it did. But that's fine.
No, yeah. So you walk up to that, and he just sort of says, "I have no idea who you think you are, but you are nowhere near important enough to make such calls." And he says, "As far as we're aware, this is official guild business. So, if you've nothing else more important to say, please tell these idiots to move out of our way so we can be about our day."
All right.
If you guys look over at Basic now, he's getting pretty pissed.
Oh God. I suppose I'll try again then. If someone wants to back me up with the persuasion, maybe give me advantage. But
you'll
I'll say
you'll have disadvantage for trying again, basically.
right. So if someone gave me advantage from the help, I would just get a normal persuasion roll. Right? That's how it works, right?
Well, yeah, and plus, like, they can't just say "I help you." Like, they have to act. What do they actually contribute to help you in the situation?
Fair enough. All right. What do you contribute to what I'm about to say?
Like, you have to say something, and then they have to like add something actually helpful.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So like, I'll step up and say again. It's like, and say, okay, this is getting ridiculous. And I'll sort of look around. And it's like, look, I can see you're all finishing up for the day, and you're purposely trying to stall us. So I'd rather we kind of move this along and you just let us pass through. I don't want any trouble. And frankly, it seems that you have come here deliberately trying to do so. Back me up, Lauren. Quickly, now!
You could basically use the fact that you can see that Basic is getting really pissed off and tell him that basically threaten them ish in a way that you won't let me loose on them because I'm gonna go murder hobos.
I don't know, Brad. Does my cat man looking like he's about to maul people to death
I don't know.
help?
Is he like drawing weapons and stuff?
No, I'm not drawing weapons, but basically I don't know how I can help because my guy is like the least charismatic guy in the neighborhood.
Yeah,
Well, I've just
I
called him
don't
out for
think
purposely trying to stall me.
Yeah,
because
To add something to that.
if you were trying to intimidate them, then
Yeah, I know.
it would certainly be helpful. But if you're trying to persuade them, it would probably be the opposite.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like character-wise, my guy is no bueno in persuading people. I'm just trying to figure out something that's within, my character's, logical
Mhm.
speaking, doing things here.
Didn't help that Zach's PC keeps turning off.
No,
Why is it
it really
doing
does.
that?
I kind of go like, is it better if everyone just gets along with their day and you stop making enemies just because you're told to?
um. Yeah. So.
Does that work, Brad?
I guess that's good enough.
Thank you for old merciful Brad. Alright, normal persuasion roll. Come on, 19, please.
Okay. So like it's a process, right? There's a lot of like pushback, um, a lot of like back and forth before like eventually you convince one side to relent so that the other can just get about their business. Um,
Yeah.
it's time consuming. They're probably doing it for like another half an hour to like an hour or so of just like resolving the situation, and it's stressful, like really very like very stressful. Given the fact that you haven't like slept at all, like either the
Oh
last
my
night,
god.
you end up pretty well and truly exhausted after this
Oh
this process.
no.
So you succeed in mediating this situation. However, the process of doing so has caused you to gain a level of exhaustion.
Fine. So, it's not something you can tick on this sheet. What does level 1 exhaustion do again?
You have disadvantage on ability checks, I believe, and attack rolls. Ability checks
Disadvantage.
and attack rolls.
Right. I guess I'll just need to remember because I don't think it's on the sheet anywhere. No, it is not. Okay. Very well.
Yeah, and so eventually the workers kind of like leave, and the laborers come in and begin like removing the refuse, piling it into their carts. You all enter into the tap room, just sort of again like Valerie, just completely exhausted from like exerting yourself in this situation here to just like try to get it resolved. In addition to not sleeping the last night, and as this is all going, you just sort of like collapse into a chair, like sliding down, breathing like a heavy sigh. Grateful that at least the situation is resolved for now, yet somewhat sort of tense and expecting that there's going to be more problems down the road at this point in time. And yeah, I think that because Zach's having some issues here, and because it's it's getting about time. and I don't think that we can really get too much more done at this point. I think basically as you are all packing up for the day, like Sheldrake and Dricken return from whatever it was they were doing, and
Hmm.
you all head to bed for tonight. And
If you want to, we could do that little me going over to the other house in the middle of the night if I can see if that works.
Yeah, good idea.
yeah, we can do one last little bit there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so dead of night, everybody has like gone to bed. Basic, you are going to like sneak over to the other place.
Yes, I kind of pull on like a hoodie and get some
Okay.
basically like infiltration gear. So
Sure
yeah.
thing. Yeah, so you make your way over there. Give me a stealth check.
Wah.
Okay. Yeah, so you make your way over there, unseen, and begin like investigating. You can see that the building is there's been some like work done on it. The building is mostly as it was on the outside at any rate. But you go like, how are you going to like? What are you doing basically? What's your plan of entry here?
If I don't remember wrong, there's a balcony, right?
There is like a balcony that overlooks the main road to the north.
Is there a way for me to climb up to the balcony kind of stealthily?
Yeah, I mean, if you, I mean, it's pretty like in the open, but like, as long as there's no like patrols like looking when you do it, there's not a great chance that anybody would see you, especially because it's dark. Like nobody's there right now, so it's like dark. Um,
Yeah.
so like, I mean, with your stealth roll, you can probably like climb up there.
Yeah, then I'm just aiming to climb up on a balcony and get a visual inside to see if I see anything.
Yeah, so climbing up on the balcony there, you can see that there's a door that like enters into the place that's obviously like closed, like a solid wooden door. There is what appears to be like an area where there like was a window, but the window has been like taken out to be replaced and has now just been like boarded up basically. So there's no actual like way to just like see inside.
Uh, hmm. Give me a second. Uh, fuck it, So, there's no way for me to see inside this house, huh?
Not from the outside at any rate, because all of the windows have been like taken out to be replaced and just like temporarily boarded up to like
Can I
cover
see
the
if there's
holes.
any of Can I see if there's any of the boards that's used to boarding up that's kind of loose?
Um, so testing them, none of them really seem like they're like loose, but like if you had some sort of like leverage, you could probably like pry the nails out. Um, it's just a matter of like, it would be pretty obvious that it happened, right?
Yeah. Fuck it, Roo. Um. hmm, uh, could I use a dagger to see if I can like pry open a little bit?
Um, I don't think a dagger would really. Maybe at the ends.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
what I mean. Like shove it in by the end of the board and just like yank it out, basically.
you can make a strength check to see if you can try to pry it loose. With just the dagger. Yeah, unfortunately, like you go to like pry it in there, and just like the way that they've pounded the nails in here, and the way that the board is placed, the dagger is just not long enough to give you enough leverage to like pull the board. You would need like an actual like crowbar or something like longer to get that leverage.
Yeah, I don't have a crowbar. That's the issue. An explorer's pack does not have a fucking crowbar for some reason. Should
Because
have taken
that's
that.
more of like a thievery thing.
No idea what you're talking about. But yeah. Okay. Can I make myself way down to make the main entrance or the back entrance to see if any of the doors are open?
Yeah, there's not really like a back entry. There's like two doors on the front and kind of like one to the main road. That's on the balcony. Checking all the doors, they do all appear to be locked.
Is there any windows around?
Not
That's
that are
not.
not that are still like just open. They've all been taken out and boarded up as part of like the reconstruction.
Oh fuck! I am. Of course, you have the good old-fashioned break the fucking door and get the fuck in, but I have don't wanna, you know,
Might be best
break
just to
the
call it
door.
quits.
Can I see if there is some way I can find a weak point that I can get? Like if there's like a basement window or anything. Is there like no way in at all right now?
Other than like prying open the boards from the windows or like picking the lock on the doors, at this point it doesn't look as though there's any sort of entrance or egress from the place that's easily accessible.
I can I see if I can pick lock the door?
Unless
I
maybe you like fancy squeezing down the chimney and hoping that you don't get stuck.
Yeah, that was an issue I was stuck with. I could do the Christmas Santa thingy, but you know, if I
Too
was a smaller
close.
if I was a smaller creature, I would have gone for it. But can I see if I can pick lock the door of in somehow?
Yeah, I mean you don't really have the tools for it, so you'll be at disadvantage, but you can try.
Yeah, yeah, it's Dex, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a dexterity check.
Uh, just Dex check. Okay.
Yeah, because you don't have proficiency, right?
Yeah. So. I just took off the proficiency of the saving throw to roll it faster. Okay.
Yeah, with a 9 is not going to be sufficient.
Fucking shit.
Yeah, and at this point you've pretty much just like exhausted every option that you can think of.
I'm literally thinking to myself just to batter the door down, but fuck, I should play the dwarf that had a battering ram. I miss that guy right now. Just hammer in the door, get what you need, and run out again. I actually don't think I have any way to get inside that fucking house right now.
I guess we can just leave it for now.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't think there's any way I can get inside. So yeah, I'm gonna go back to the Troll Skull Manor
Okay.
after planting C-Force around over the house.
Yeah. Are Nat and Jinx about? And
I,
like,
this is
Spidley?
happening like after bedtime.
We can
basically.
send them down the chimney.
Yeah,
I was
I
just
know.
wanting to ask them whether they've experienced any haunting stuff here.
I could see if I can chimney down the chimney, but I might get stuck, and that's no bueno.
Yeah. So if you ask like the children before everybody's like going to bed, they haven't like experienced anything like strange like you've been mentioning. Um,
Oh, just make fun of me.
yeah, they just like make fun of you for it, right? Like for being like scared or whatever.
Hate these kids. Well, anyway, that's fine. I think what I'll do as well, like Valerie, since she's like scared, would be like, can I like crash in one of your rooms tonight?
Sleep with Sir Reginald.
I'm pretty sure all of us but you sleep in the same room.
I'll sleep in the communal room this night.
Sure. So you drag your bedroll over.
Hmm.
All right.
Are you having nightmares this night as well? Because I'm coming home after you went to bed.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I was just gonna sleep in the same room as the rest of you tonight, rather than on my own.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering if I'm coming into the room with you having a bunch of nightmares
Well,
in the middle of the night.
we'll have to find out next time.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so we will wrap things up for today here, and then next time we will see if anything untoward happens during the night, and then see what the morrow brings. Hopefully, we'll have Thor and Mike back next week, and we
Hope
can go
so.
on from there. But you have gotten another new potential job to work towards,
Yep.
as well, and learned a little bit about the history of the manor. So you're making some progress. So we'll see you all next week.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Who's taking the?
Yeah. So
Thingy?
who amongst those of you that have spent your inspiration now would like to do the recap next week?
Still have mine.
I've spent mine.
James.
I guess it's James.
All right.
All right. So we will see you all next week, same time, same place. James,
Yes.
if you are available on Wednesday at 4 my time, which would be what, like
8 or
10,
9 for
8
me.
or 9 for you, yeah. If you're available for like an hour or two, we can start working on some of the downtime stuff.
Yes. Yes. I'm down. Sounds
Get that
good
all
to
set
me.
up. So, yeah, so we'll do that next week. We'll probably stream that as like a one-on-one session, and then
Yes.
we'll go from there. So, yeah, see you all next
Sounds
week.
good.
Thank you all, and bye.